This is the fifth and last video in a short series on basic concepts in genetics. So to wrap up, I have a sample of 3 different questions from the homework that tie in the concepts that we've just been talking about. So, first question is, if monozygotic twins show complete concordance for a trait, whether reared together or apart, what does that suggest about the heritability of the trait? If a trait shows really high concordance among monozygotic twins, whether they're reared together or apart, then that means that the genetic component has a higher influence on the phenotype than the environmental variants, because they're raised in completely different environments, but they're still exhibiting this trait. So that means that it probably has a heritability that is closer to 1. The second question is, diabetes has a concordance value of 65% in monozygotic twins and 18% in dizygotic twins. What do these numbers indicate about the relative importance of genetics in diabetic phenotype? So this is interesting because we're looking at a concordance value that is not 1 or 0. Monozygotic twins, if it has a strong genetic component to the expression of that trait, are going to have a concordance value of closer to 100%. So 65%, 35% of those monozygotic twins have a different expression of this phenotype, even though they share 100% of their genes. So that shows that there's clearly an environmental influence on this phenotype. The dizygotic twins, we expect about a 50% concordance value if this trait is very heritable, because remember, they only share about 50% of their genes. Because dizygotic twins show an 18% of concordance in this trait, it also shows that the genes have some influence over it, but the environment also has quite a bit of influence over this phenotype. Very interesting. This last question brings back the ideas of patterns of inheritance, which we talked about earlier. During meiosis, a small region of X and Y chromosomes participate in crossing over, though these chromosomes are structurally and genetically distinct. If a gene lies in that region, will its pattern of transmission be more like a sex-linked or autosomal gene? Because these genes lie on a small region that does participate in crossing over, it's going to behave more like an autosomal trait. Because those genes could be carried on an X or a Y chromosome, it's not actually going to behave like a sex-linked characteristic, because even though it's technically on the sex-linked chromosome, X or Y, it could be on either. Those genes on that small region that participates in crossing over behave like autosomal genes when we're looking at patterns of inheritance. We've reached the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed learning about different patterns of inheritance and how to construct a pedigree, and just different ways to look at how your genes and the environment can affect how your genes express as a phenotype. Have a good day and happy studying!